What's good? We are getting into the 2000s again today. They are coming back in a major way. We're going to look at two beats, a Neptune style one and a Scott Storch. I love both these producers and there's so much to learn from both of their styles. Very different, but also some similarities. We're going to look at music theory, we're going to look at plugins, we're going to look at mixing, and we're going to look at a little bit of history as well. So you're going to learn something today, you're going to up your game, and even if you don't make 2000 stuff, to have this in your locker is always going to make you a better producer all round. And we're going to be making these from scratch, so let's get into it. Scott Storch has got so many bangers, from Naughty Girl Beyonce to Cry Me a River to Let Me Blow Your Mind. There's just so many hits in different styles that Scott's got, from hip hop, R&B. We're going to take elements of both. I'm going to show you how you can make something in the style of Scott Storch. And the first thing that comes to mind with him is call and response. Call and response is exactly that. You got your call, you're having a conversation, rhythmic. Couple little other elements that are supporting that, but that is where the main framework is going to be. He used very, very common chord progressions in most of his beats, although there was that like Eastern influence. If you think about Candy Shop, if you think about Naughty Girl, those little kind of Middle Eastern flute melodies and stuff. We'll see if we can either use that or maybe a string. That was classic Scott Storch as well. Show you how you can incorporate that into your beats. You know, this sound is coming right back, so it's good to know this, guys. 98 BPM, which is good for this kind of Scott Storchy style. You're gonna hear, I've just programmed this really simple drum groove, but again, this is a great framework to get the juices flowing, get you started. Those snaps were a classic Scott Storch sound. We can already you know, stuff's flowing through my mind already. Still producing fire right now, but this is that classic thing that you'll always associate. Ah, that's a Scott Storch beat. And I just couldn't believe that he did, you know, tracks from like Let Me Love You, what an absolute all-time R&B classic, to Run It, Chris Brown. I suppose we're going to be making something maybe a bit more Run It like, and maybe we'll stick a bridge in because he used to love bridges as well. We are gonna go to a piano sound, and I'm just gonna maybe go for like a 1-4-5. We'll keep it in A minor, so we're just going to be playing like an A minor chord, an A minor 7th, going to like a D minor 9 maybe, and then like hitting that E minor. But I may go for an E dominant chord, which is just a 5 chord of the A minor, so we can do that like alto dominant sound, which again will give us a little more R&B flavor when we come round to it. So we go to the keyboard, I'll just start messing around with some ideas, and then after that we'll add bass, probably just an 808 here, like a spins or something, nothing too crazy. And then we will leave plenty of space for an artist. We'll just add maybe some of those little lead lines. We may go for something Eastern. We could use like a harmonic minor scale of back to the 1. Always like great little fills. There was this Scott Storch thing. If you listen to Candy Shop, the part that always caught my ears, I'm such a producer, is there's this rising and it builds the tension so nicely. That is production genius in my opinion, but not everyone spots that. But you know, I'm going to show you these things because I got your backs. And remember, if you want more one-to-one info, just hit me up for a one-to-one on IG at B-Sticks Production. We can go into all of this. I can tell you these little tweaks that will just elevate your production. Doesn't have to be anything major, but these little things that, you know, will take you from here to here. So yeah, hit me up. Let's go to the piano. Let's see what we can come up with for this drum beat. Rhythms I like, we can tidy that up. That's just a starting point. So double these up now, these bass notes. I'm not sure if I like that top note. I'm always thinking melodically here. You can see how I'm playing these keys here. So let's go. I'm going to put in a boom, boom. Little lead-in note here. Just finessing this as we're going, really. Woo. Da-dum. Make sure this chord rings out nicely. Altered notes then. You see how that is giving us tension, going back to that one, and that tension we can ramp up by putting maybe a pizzicato string line. This note may be a bit low, we're just doubling up on that note really, so. You could even go with that steel Dre track, clank, 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 clank. That was a Scott Storch, obviously one of his trademarks. Again, it's all choices here. Let's go and stick a pizzicato rhythm on the end of the line, but I wouldn't probably put it on this time round. I'd probably double the whole passage, and then on the bar 8, the end of bar 8, I'd have that string. So pad, let's go with pits. So actually 16th notes is probably good here, and we're just going to draw in. So but let's just mix it a little bit here, get the volumes ready. We need a little lead sound as well. Let's stick an 808 in first, so we're going to go with the spins, obviously. I'm not loving that. Changing the voicings up here because I wasn't really liking it, and this is something, again, as you go along and you make stuff from scratch, you can modify them. So I didn't like that note in there. It wasn't hitting right for me. Just turning it back to an A minor triad. I do like this second chord. You can see I'm jumping around a little bit, but this is just how my brain's working. I'm kind of going over what I think needs to be in these different sections. So, you know. Clink, 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 clink. We could change it. We could try something, you know. If I come over now and I'm like, okay. See, now it's kind of coming alive a little bit more now. I was trying that little rhythm there. You could use that instead of a lead line, because if I then put a lead line over the top, it would be too much. So how about we kind of try that? The A minor triad and then the D minor triad. So I'm just up here. Yeah, and with that little it's really kind of taking shape. It's amazing, like the journey that you go on when you're making something, you know? That needs a bit of work, but we can dequantize that a little bit, sort of like humanize it, just to, you know, give it a little bit more flavor, because you don't want to be rigid. Give it some in the pad. definitely hear like an early 2000s artist sort of doing something over this. If we were to put a little lead line in there now, let's look at what we've got here. Lead wise, very, very 2000s. Now, we don't want to overfill the beat. There's enough information in there now. You can put a lead sound in, bury it low, but it's all about leaving space for that artist. Now, the fun part, a classic 2000s progression for bridges, the F major 7 or major 9. Then we go to that E minor, which is that 5 chord. Then the 4, we're just walking down 6, 5, 4. Then we're going to go back to that 1. Then we go 6, 5, 4, and then we go to that 7. So I'm not going to sit and program that all, but the next shot you will see that that bridge will be in. Here we are, we've got the chords in, and I slightly changed up from what I was just talking about a minute ago, but if you just take a listen, nice. Hold on that D chord there. Takes you into a different space, right? Now we can add hi-hats there to change that bridge up as well. I mean, there's no hats in this whatsoever. So, and it's still making my head move. An artist could vibe to that. And you could always add other things in here and there. But essentially, that is a Scott Storch. You've got some nice things to work on and digest there. Let's look at the Neptunes. On my last Neptunes video, someone was asking, where did these drum sounds come from? Now, the Neptunes would have been using some old equipment like the ASR 10s and the emus and anything that was available back then. I'm sure that they were using just stock drum sounds and also sampled some snares and things off of records as well. But today we're blessed because we've got access to so many sounds, and then it's all about that bounce and how you program them. I've just laid down this stomp-like kick, which is reminiscent of like grinding or something, and this nice live sounding snare. The Neptunes used to love that. That kind of syncopation in the kick pattern. You can nudge your snares as well a little bit off grid, because the way that they were sequencing these drums, there was probably been a little bit of natural swing coming in from the machines. They weren't perfectly quantized, so again, replicate that if you want. And that just gives your drums a bit of a human feel as well. Something that really brought the Neptunes drums alive were shaker sounds and cowbells and extra percussions, and I've seen studio footage of Pharrell knocking stuff and just having fun in the studio. Feel free to do that yourself, but you can program these things in. A Cabasa is a good little toy you can get on Amazon. I've just got a shaker sample, and I drew this in from an old Rompler CD as well, from the ASR 10 in fact, so giving a little nod to one of those old school drum machines. I'm going to jump on the keyboard and just program something in that I think will fit with this drum groove. The more you listen to old records, you're going to just start to get these drum grooves in your head, and you're going to start to internalize them and see how they need to go. Just got a nice shaker sound that I've put into my sampler in Logic, and I want it quite thick sound as well, so obviously you can hear that it's pitched up the whole keyboard. I might go for this one here, and I'm just going to play the drums round, playing a little rhythm as I'm going. What I've played is okay. Sounds a bit robotic. De-quantized it a little bit, humanized it. In Logic, you just come over to here, MIDI transform, humanize, and you can humanize that a little bit at random. I'm sure you can do that in FL as well, or Ableton. Here's my pattern. And I'm going to put one more, maybe here, just drew that in there. As I always say, and that sounded terrible, I'm just channeling my inner Pharrell to try to see how we might we might get a little vibe going on. Now, copy this out, and this is basic drum beat. Probably gonna, you know, change this and modify it, but I like to get something that I can start to put some chords together, start to build a vibe. As always, pick up my trusty guitar, see what I can come up with. And immediately I'm thinking about that Neptunes kind of you know what I mean? That just... Woo. And all I was doing there was E flat minor 9 to A flat minor 9, and just hammering on and off with that minor 9 there, extension. I know that I can put a diminished chord half a step away from any minor chord, so I'm just going to do that diminished chord maybe as a little tiny little implied, or I may just imply it with the bass moving to a D there on that, you know, that pickup beat before we come back around to the 1 again. Put them in on a simple EP sound to start with, and look, I'm not even going to use the Logic 1, we're going to go straight to the Triton, and that is the sound of Timbaland and Scott Storch and Darkchild and every major producer back in the day. So yeah, let's just do chords, long held out chords to start with, and then we'll maybe just then put them on that strato chime, which is like that guitar preset that was used all over the Neptune stuff. Ding, 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 you know, for that classic kind of syncopated, funky rhythm thing. If we're not sure how to draw a E flat minor 9, look at a D minor 9, which is super simple to remember. It's just a D and then the word face. So you're just drawing a F, an A, C and an E. And I'll take that whole chord down an octave, but then we'll go from the D up to the E flat, and now we have that beautiful, and we can already tell that it's going to be 2 bars worth of that chord and then 2 bars worth of the A flat minor 9 chord, right? And the cool thing is we can just take this chord here, the D sharp, let's find an A flat. If you want to know how we'd see that, just be seen as a minor 1/4 progression. Super common but super effective, and if it works, it works, right? It's going to be our version of this because we're going to personalize it. Well, it's going to be via the Neptune. Those voicings are okay. What happens if we take these 2 top notes, drop them down? Does that improve the... And then we could put that little diminished chord in here, and we can either use it or take it out. Let's look at a D diminished chord, and that's super easy to make. Our root will be D, and then we will skip 2 notes, put a note in, because a diminished chord is based on stacking minor thirds. So that is a simple diminished chord. Although sounds a bit twanky down there. Let's try that. Try this now. The cool thing about diminished chords is we can just rotate the notes around without changing the chords because the intervals are symmetrical. I like that there, but maybe let's put a top note on there as well. So nice. Now we can make these chords a little bit more interesting by adding movement, something I always love to do. So immediately, bit of phasing, nice. See those kind of voicings, those kind of chords, immediate Pharrell, we're going to do as well. You wait till we get to our bridge, we're going to just go crazy with that, so you want to stick around for that. Let's look at the nice strato chime and get our, you know, dang, 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 dang. We could use the sustain chords for like a pre-chorus section or something like that. We have the famous strato chime preset. Let's label stuff up because housekeeping is always important. Label your sessions, guys. Label your sessions. We've only got like 4 sounds in here, but because our intention and our mentality is correct, we're already channeling the Neptunes in a good way. So let's now pull the same chords down, because we can just use this MIDI. We got to think about rhythm here as well. Maybe we'll go ga 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 ga. You should always think about the rhythm of your chords and the bounce of your drums. I hear a lot of people that are like, help me with my beats, help me, what am I doing wrong? And it doesn't sound like everything is grooving and moving together as it should be. Let's bring in our drums here. Down, down, down. Always thinking about changing up. Nice. And if I feel like these things are too long, I'll just... They don't need to be perfect. The source is the imperfection. Woo! Da da da. Then we want a nice like ga ga ga. You can just hear that this one is now too long, right? Da-dum-dum-dum. We want that same rhythm again. See how I'm really being meticulous here about bounce and about feel? And this is what's going to separate your stuff from just sounding like... Patterns and repetition are super important as well. So you're establishing... If you're not sure about the rhythms here, you can look at where you had the other ones and just kind of like copy over, you know. It's a balancing act of how these things should feel. And this is just an experience thing. You might hear things differently to me. This is just my interpretation of how I think it should go, you know. And we can put these like, and we can finish and round it off. Ba, ba. I think that should just be on the bars, you know. So like on the... Now, what we got with our percussion, with everything in so far. What about we put another top note on it? So build that tension up for the end. Bow, bow. Maybe we'll like add in this note on the top here, so it's kind of, we could try to take that one out so it's like... I'm loving that right now. Fire. Save your projects. We're in that ballpark, right? It's kind of working. Do do do. We can add those little toms if we want. Any other percussion. Do 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 do. You know, little cowbell I'm hearing in my head. I don't want to overcrowd it, but yeah, let's put a bass in for now. Now, I wanted to show you my recording process for recording the bass in. However, the camera didn't record, which is really annoying, and I was talking while I was doing it, so there was loads of stuff, but it doesn't matter. All I was saying was that I used another tritone preset for the bass, and it's called E-Pick 2, a bass that's being played with a plectrum or pick, this little plastic thing that you use to play a guitar, but actually rock or punk bass players use a pick to play bass as well, and it just gives you a little initial attack transient on the sound, which is kind of like fitting with the whole NERD Pharrell nerd type thing, and so I thought it would be fitting for this beat here. I also programmed it an octave above where I was going to put it, because, and I say this about 808s as well, if you program them an octave above, you can really hear the melodic notes that you're playing, and the ear finds it easier to pick out at that frequency, and then you just drop it down an octave. So I recorded, and the cool thing about this key that I'm in, E flat minor, is that you can use all of the black keys on the keyboard, and they all will work within this kind of scale here that we use in this like E flat minor pentatonic scale to have really cool bass notes. So all the information you need is going to be within this bass line itself. I kept it simple. I hit root notes, but I just put a couple of little fills, and over 8 bars I made some variation. So let's get back to where the audio synced up again. let's look at what we've got here. We're just going to quantize that up initially. I like that. It's actually really nice what I played there. This is just a taste thing. I'm just going to delete a couple notes, move them around. Excellent, it's quite Pharrell-y. Now drop it down an octave and it's going to transform to a lot more of a meaty sound. Nice. Now that shaker's just super loud, really bugging me, so I'm going to bring it right down. Although and you've seen in my other video as well that I'll be mixing as I'm going, because I'm always making decisions based upon the sounds that I'm adding and how they affect the overall balance of everything. I like where that bass is. I'm going to stick a compressor on the bass and sidechain to the kick. So all I'll do is I'll just grab a compressor here and I just use Logic's basic compressor and I'll just set the sidechain input to the kick and then dial in about 4 to 5 dBs of gain reduction. And what if we mute the EP for the first one? Ooh, you hear when that EP comes in there? Signifies that we're going up in to somewhere. And then we could maybe add one more lead line and then we'll do a bridge. And remember, the black keys are our friends. We can just mess around with the black keys and I'm gonna just play around with some different lead ideas, see which one I like. And that's what I do in here, trial and error. And I'm thinking about what kind of rhythms I've already got in the beat. What kind of other rhythms could I use to maybe counter what I've got melodically, but also counter what I've got rhythmically as well. So we could go. I like that. You know, ideally I probably would spend a bit longer messing with some melodies, but I got one that I liked in there. I'm going to add some reverb to this sound as well. So that one at bar 7 for me is the motif that I think should continue throughout the whole. Then that's just got enough variation, but enough repetition that it's quite hooky still. We'll pan it to the right maybe, drop it down in the mix a little bit, add some more reverb to it just to wash it out, you know. And then probably add like an echo that I think will probably give it some more life. And you can hear these are just sounds that I would bring in gradually as the beat goes along, just to keep the interest going, keep the listener like hooked. So the fun part, the last bit of this beat, we're gonna just do some wild chords for a bridge section, because why not? The Neptunes were known for just going crazy, doing those Quincy Jones style, Michael Jackson style bridges. And I had this idea to kind of go, so at the moment we're going, what if we go? And then Yeah, we could go. And then back there again. Don't ask me what I was doing there. I was choosing random major nines and sus chords just to try and give us that variation and that flavour. You know, you don't need to do this, but by the magic of editing, when I click my fingers, those chords are going to be in the computer and we're going to listen to how they sound. That section, we can add a couple more sounds to take the vibe up after that chorus as like an outro chorus, but I love bridges and I will never let the bridge die.